And we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show. I'm Ray. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
And that's Dan. We're both bearded real estate agents, which make us ideal hosts for a show called the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. If you're watching us live on the Facebook, this may be your only shot at watching us somewhere else. Yesterday, we tried to do several live feeds in the RETV group, and Facebook kept killing the feed. So I have no idea if this feed is going to last on Facebook. If you're watching us on Facebook right now, you might want to go check out the stream on YouTube. We will pop that in. Matt, producer Matt, if you could pop in that link into the comments, that way people can find it. I have no idea what was happening, but yesterday we went live in RETV to talk about everything that was happening, real estate video, how to do video on a budget and all this stuff. And it took us 3 times to get it out, and then it still killed the stream. So this stream may not last, and I'll know if I get like a little warning. So if you're,
and by the way, RETV is a group, if you guys don't know about it, that a few of our friends started. Ray's one of them, Tim Macy of the Tim Macy Show. Hey, don't mention any of those posts that are coming in. Don't say anything about those. No, don't do it. No, don't do it. And then Colin JJ Cameron, formerly, he's still on hiatus from RETV. Sorry, that's just a scandal we can't talk about. But they started, it's a rad group. So if you do video, if you're just curious about video as an agent, go join that group. It's an amazing group of people.
There you go. And also, if you're listening to us from the Clubhouse application, you can actually join the show. We can add your audio to the show. It'll be broadcast live on YouTube, and if the Facebook stream survives, it'll be there. But we'll also be recording this show, and then it will be distributed throughout the world, because we do have a worldwide audience. I don't know if you know this, but we are number 16 news show in Taiwan. So it will be distributed throughout the world, and people will hear you have a discussion with us live. So it's pretty cool. We do have a ton of stories to cover. If you're watching us on YouTube on the replay, you could go down to the description, and we'll have timestamps of each of the articles that we're going to cover today. And we've got a ton of great articles to cover. You can click that timestamp and zoom right to that part of the show. If you want to get through all this fun banter, you don't want to watch it, that's your prerogative.
If you're just here for the content, not for us, then just click those links, or
click the link.
Or you can watch the Be More Chops. We do some chops throughout the week as well, so you can watch those.
There you go. So today we're going to talk about February home prices. We're going to talk about new houses being more expensive than existing homes, despite what some data says. So we're going to take a deeper dive into some of the data that we're seeing. We're going to talk about mortgage rates falling. Let's see, what was the first article? Existing home sales. What's going on with them? Are they down or up, and why? And Biden's $15,000 first-time home buyer tax credit is now a bill.
I'm only a bill.
Wait, yes.
Sitting on the Capitol Hill.
More people should watch that so they know what's going on. I think it's a lost generation that has no idea how that happens. All right, so some of you joined us last week where we talked about the $25,000 grant. This is a $15,000 first-time homebuyer tax credit, which is very different from what the other bill is. And some say that both of them may get passed. So we'll take a look at that.
And the other one's not a bill yet. That was a proposal. This one's a bill, right?
I think both may be bills, but they haven't been passed yet.
Okay.
We'll take a deeper dive into that. Now, we're also going to talk about Compass. They're back in the news, and they're buying something that a lot of real estate agents use. So it's got some real estate agents worried. And of course, Dan is going to hit on the people fleeing from California and all of the people trying to find peace and tranquility in other parts of the United States, because California is burning to the ground and falling off the United States. Right, Dan?
Yeah, it's really right. I'll get into it later, but it's very difficult to live here right now. And it's very difficult to be an agent here right now. It's just the business is kind of drying up. So I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, we'll get back to that.
Well, Dan, before we do get into all these articles, would you tell people what our show is actually all about?
I can't. I'm being serious about the last thing I said, guys. I'm being serious. I would love to tell you what the show's about. Now, when Ray and I met, okay, it's funny because we met 39 years ago today. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, really?
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Don't read too much into that, but that's weird. But it is weird. But and at the time, I'm obviously a bearded man of real estate, and I had an idea for a show. And when I met Ray, I noticed something very interesting about him.
Really? What was so interesting about that little baby?
He hates birthdays. Hates them. Hates birthdays. Doesn't like them. No, not his own. No one's.
It took me a long time to appreciate the birthday, actually. I liked them when I was a kid because I get all this stuff. But as I got older and older, I didn't really like them because it was just like, man, I'm getting older and I still have
Same.
so much left to do. And I don't, I'm running out of time. So yeah, it's I'm okay with them now. I think they're fine and I'll celebrate them, but it's not my favorite thing in the world.
Well, and why, guys, why do you think if you want to hit some of those comments now, why do you think I'm bringing up that Ray hates birthdays today, that we met 39 years ago today?
Yeah. And that's why I call him daddy. Melissa Morris said, hey, birthday boy and Dan.
Wait, who? Birthday boy and Dan. So I'm not the birthday boy.
No, we got a howdy from James. Mario Flores says, what up, Dan and Ray? And
Marley checking in.
Says, happy birthday, Ray.
It's your birthday. That's weird.
That's right. The big 3-9, which I don't think is that a big big one?
No, next year you'll feel it.
Yeah. Melissa Mars at School of House Rocks.
And Ray is
old when you met. So I guess yeah.
Those are always funny numbers. I say we met 4 years ago, but whatever. But Ray is Matt. Don't worry about what he calls me. But Ray is born. He's not really a millennial, and he's not really a Gen Xer. He's right in between. Yeah. And so I guess you're what do they call it? You're the Oregon Trail generation.
The Oregon Trail generation. So we've talked about this on the show before. The Oregon Trail generation is Marley. She says that's a big birthday. It's the last birthday in your 30s. That's true. All right. So the Oregon
I don't
Trail
like
generation,
last. I like first birthday of your 40s.
Yeah, that will be next year.
Yeah.
So the Oregon Trail generation is this weird middle ground in which we, and it's like a 2-year gap. It's like from 1982, 1984. Yeah, it's kind of in that range, but really in 1982 is kind of they say it's like the sweet spot, this middle spot. And we grew up most of our life without a lot of technology and computers. We were playing outside in the neighborhoods. We were driving our bikes all around the city. Not a big deal. It's just how we grew up. We grew up outside. Then as we got into junior high and high school, computers started to enter into the households. And the first computers that we had to build. Like my computer came in a box and I had to put the components together in order to have a computer. And so I learned how to build a computer. Then I also learned how to program websites and geosites, and MySpace had HTML code. And it was a very interesting time where if you wanted to be on a computer in those days, you couldn't get away with like just buying a Mac and having something just work for you. There were Macs, but you had to be pretty smart as far as knowing what you were doing and knowing how to use the internet, knowing how to use Usenets and news groups. And all that stuff. So,
right. Even back then, I wasn't an Apple guy. I had a Commodore VIC-20. I didn't even have an Apple IIe. I didn't get it. I got a Commodore VIC-20.
Man, my first computer was an NEC. That's
yeah.
So anyway, we were also the 1982 is if you went to high school and graduated on time and had a 4-year degree, you are 1982. The Oregon Trail generation is the last graduating class from college without Facebook.
Yeah.
So Facebook happened right after I graduated from college. So
yeah,
there you go. There's this is your live.
Yeah, there you go. Usually we keep this kind of short because we know you guys hate the banter, but it's a special day. It's the last birthday of Ray's 30s. So
in fairness, we have tried to cut this banter before and we got hosed for it. So we were like, hey, let's just get right into the headlines and make it fast. Everyone's like, where's the banter? So
seriously, we would, because we would go on like this, and we felt like, you know what, we're going on too long. We cut it like, okay, let's get into the headlines. And people are like, wait, what happened? Where's the By the way, go to Matt. Well, Matt, you go to your own comment, but kind of crazy that I grew up playing. This is Matt Clanton, that I grew up playing the video games that Dan was developing.
That is wild.
So I used to make video games, and they're big titles. And so he was playing the ones that I was, developing.
Jeremy James says my brother had a Texas Instruments. If you looked at the thumbnail today, we're going to be talking about a lot about housing data. You can see Dan with his calculator. Julie Moon, who's probably yelling at us in her car, says the banter has to make us laugh. No pressure. Good grief.
Oh, gosh.
All that pressure.
Jeez.
Melissa Mara says Gateway that came in a lovely cow box.
Yeah.
That was a few years after the NECs, I think.
Those weren't those early 90s?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That was around the time of the Mac and PC.
Yeah.
Julie Boots says that's when we pay you the big bucks.
Right. So when we translate that, we make nothing. So okay,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
I
That's
got
what
it,
you're
I got it.
saying.
All right. Well, you ready to
But
give me these
anyway,
headlines?
all right, now I gotta finish up. But I
Oh,
know
right.
obviously happy birthday, Ray. It's happy birthday. But I obviously noticed he's a beautifully bearded man, but also noticed that he had a format for a show and a layout for the show, and he loved to give value up front to not only his clients but also just to humans in general. So the show is about being more as an agent, but also being more as a human.
And one of the things we can help you guys be more as an agent is by giving you a one-stop shop for all the real estate headlines, so you know what's happening in the economy, and hopefully you can inform consumers saying, hey, here's what's happening with existing home sales, and here's why you see the price increases. And I know that you saw that new construction was cheaper than resale homes, but here's the reason why. And if we arm you with these tools, with this knowledge and information, hopefully it'll make you a better guide for other people through their transaction of their largest asset in a lot of ways.
So we're making the real estate world better by doing the show, is what Ray's saying.
But we're not going to just sit here and spout articles. One of the things that makes this different is all the feedback, like the comments that we're getting from YouTube and Facebook, and from the people that are going to join us in Clubhouse and talk live on air with us a little bit later to go through some of these articles. We are going to do it a little bit different today. We have 4 articles right off the top that are all about stats and facts and data. And we're going to cover all 4 of those articles, and then we're going to have a little discussion on these articles. So as Matt he loves cutting up stuff like this. So we're going to have each one of these chops, and then at the end, we'll have like its own chop of the discussion of what's happening in the economy.
I'm going to mess it up somehow for Matt. I always do something.
Are you ready to get in the headlines?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
So it's just refreshing. That's my favorite part of the show right there. That's so refreshing. It's so good.
So we're upgrading some stuff soon. And part of the reason we're doing that is because we had a couple of people reach out to us about sponsoring the show. So we may get our first show sponsor, which would be cool.
One is very interesting, by the way.
Right. What we're going to do, what we're going to do is use the money they pay us to help distribute the show so more people can see it, right? But in order to be fair for the sponsors, we wanted to put a little bit of technology in place to really show what they want us to show. So be on the lookout for that. If we have a transition that's kind of automatic in there, we're still going to have to record it and then just do it, because it's not going to be the same if we don't.
We could just record us doing that thing and then have it pre-played and then
I think that's
it'll be so bad but awesome.
Probably exactly what we're going to do. All right, so let's talk about existing home sales. They suffer the second straight monthly decline.
Oh God.
Why? Closed sales of existing homes fell 3.7% in March to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate of 6.01 million units, according to the National Association of Realtors. That's the slowest pace since August, and the second straight month of declines.
Wait, August of last year or August of like 8 years ago?
Of August of last year.
Oh, that's not that bad.
Oh, yeah, okay. So still, sales were 12.3% higher than March 2020. What was happening in March 2020? Let's think about it. Okay. So it says sales were 12.3% higher. So that means things that happened 30 days ago would cause properties to go under contract and close. But what happens a year and 30 days ago? The whole world market slowed down. But wait, this says in March. That's when everything started slowing down. So actually, this is talking about the numbers of people that went pending in February, closing in March.
Yeah.
The March numbers this year was still higher, 12.3%. Now, I would anticipate that our April numbers for next month are going to be a lot higher, because we all know the U shape that happened in the showings. Showing time gave us that data.
Yeah.
And we all saw this big U as it went down in March, then back up in April. So with lower showings, you also had fewer people going under contract. So I would anticipate next month, like there being a massive surge compared to the year before, and then it kind of settling down the month after that. So,
well, and remember too, I don't know if it happened everywhere, but in California for sure, there was a lot of uncertainty about, wait, can we close? Not, obviously if a borrower that's in escrow, got furloughed or lost their job, that's going to be a tough one to close, but also just, how do you physically get anywhere to sign docs. How do we do this? And we had a form that we added that you could add 15 days onto the end of your escrow. So I don't know if that was nationwide or just here in California, but there was a lot of uncertainty. So, these numbers just aren't that bad because, but like Ray said, I think it's going to be very interesting because then it kind of went, okay, we're good. We know, a lot of us knew we were essential, not all of us across the nation, but we knew we were essential. We knew how to get things closed. We pushed through, and then we started getting things closed.
Right. Jeremy James says the comparing anything to 2020 numbers is a bit absurd. Yeah. We've been kind of asking for people to go back 2 years and see what it was. So here's the supply of homes. It fell 28.2% from a year ago. So supply today is even lower than what it was last year.
20. That's a lot. 20%.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were just 1.07 million homes for sale at the end of the month, representing a 2.1 month supply. Now, Lawrence Yoon, he's the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors. He said that if demand was retreating, then we would see fewer multiple offers. But we know that multiple offers are widely prevalent in today's market, including in Arkansas, which, just to give you a context of our market as a whole, we don't have these giant ups and downs. Right. When the world real estate market crashed, it hurt in Arkansas, but not nearly as bad as some of the other major cities.
Yeah.
When the market resurged and was going crazy and you guys were getting multiple offers around the country, we would only have multiple offers on like the cutest properties or the best homes. But for the most part, it was about a 60 to 90 days on market. And that was kind of back to normal. It was still leaning towards the seller's market, but that was still back to normal in our market. Now we're like at 30 days or less. The cute ones are selling in a couple of hours with multiple offers. And so even in Arkansas, we're seeing the multiple offers, which is a sign that the buyer demand's not retreating.
Yeah, they're seeing hours on the market, days on market, which since we've been doing the show, his Ray's days on market has been 30-ish or so when the average was 45. Obviously, Ray's better than the average agent. But, so to have the average kind of Little Rock, Arkansas go from 45 down to days, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. And then if you see,
it went from 60 to days. It went from 90 to 60, and then from 60 to like days on market.
Days on, I mean, that's a big jump. And it went, I would assume, fairly quickly over the course of a month or a month and a half. And then if you look at Adam Johnson, and I always forget where Adam is, but they're down 44% in his market. Let's just round it. That's 50% less inventory than a year ago. That's crazy.
Let's see. A couple of good comments. Clayton Fernando Trim says houses nationwide are averaging 4 offers per property.
That's wish wild. I only had to go up against 4. Jeez.
Okay, so we have some comments about pricing. Adam Johnson said number of listings, we are up over 15% sales price. So yeah, let's talk about the impact of this market on sales price. Then isn't that the next one? Yeah. So let's talk about sales price. Then we're going to talk about the comparisons of retail homes and new construction homes. Then we're going to talk about the mortgage rates. And then I want all of your comments and feedbacks on these 4 articles. So Dan, why don't you take it away on the home prices?
Okay. So February home prices see the biggest gain in 15 years. And this is from S&P Case-Shiller. Excuse me. I've had a lot of iced tea today and I'm a little bit tipsy. All right. Home price gains continue. It's just a brown liquid. It doesn't have to be iced tea, right? Anyway, home price gains continue to outpace expectations as tight supply and strong demand lead to bidding wars. Nationally, prices in February rose 12% year over year, up from 11.2% in January. And that's according to the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller Home Price Index. This is a quote. The national composite's 12% gain is the highest recorded since February of 2006. So we've said on the show, we're about in right now, 2005, 2006, comparatively. So these numbers back that up. It's the highest recorded gain since February 2006, exactly 15 years ago, and lies comfortably in the top decile of historical performance, said Craig Lazar, a managing director and global head of index investment for S&P. He goes on to say February's price gains in every city are above that city's median level and rank in the top quartile of all reports in 18 cities. And if you want the breakdown of which cities these are, it mentions specific. They have a 10-city composite, a 20-city composite. This is from CNBC. Prices rose decisively despite the fact that mortgage rates also moved sharply higher during the month. The average rate on the popular 30-year fixed mortgage started February at 2.79% and ended the month at 3.27%. The cities with the largest gains continued to be Phoenix, and this is a weird one, Ray. San Diego, California. They're up. So prices in Phoenix gained 17.4% year over year, followed by San Diego with 17%, and then Seattle 15.4% increase. 19 of the 20 cities reported stronger price gains in the year ended February 2021 versus the year ended January. So I just find that, with everyone leaving California, I find it interesting that San Diego is up so much year over year. You know what I'm saying? I can't hear Ray, by the way. Why can't I hear Ray? Oh, Ray's muted.
Sorry, I'm muted.
There
must be something wrong with the data, Dan.
Something wrong with the data, which I'm going to come back to because I found some data, but I know we're moving through them. But essentially, price gains are up. So if you're a seller holding on, you're making some good cash right now. But are you going to cash out, or are you just going to hold on? And then are you going to have that thought process of, man, I could have cashed out in 2021, but now it's back down the 10% in 2022? Like, I want to know the thought process of sellers because there's not a lot of inventory out there.
Right. Home price gains gain.
Home price gains gain. They don't slow. They gain, actually.
All right. So speaking of home price gains gain, let's talk about the national median price of newly built homes, single family, that are sold in March. All right. So this is
are the gains gaining there too? While the other ones gain?
Interesting. So this is a brand new.
You know what's funny, Ray, is gains are gaining in Gainesville. Did you hear that story?
Yes. You remember that story? Yeah. Okay. So the national median price of a newly built home, single family. So this is brand new construction, $330,800. Okay?
National.
So the home now that is a resale home. So this is an older home. It's been lived in. You could call it a used home.
It's been loved in too.
That's right. It was $334,500.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know what you're thinking, Dan. I can go buy a brand new home for cheaper than what a resale home cost.
Right. So all those high lumber prices and tariffs and all that stuff, it's not affecting it, right?
Yeah, not so fast.
Oh.
So what we're seeing, this is a strange anomaly that's happening in the numbers due to where properties are selling and where properties are not selling. If you remember, about 3 years ago when we started the show, we had about a 15 to 18 month supply of luxury listings in our market, right? The luxury starts at 500,000 in Arkansas. You can buy a castle for 2 million. If you're out there and you want an investment, we got them. All right. So luxury listings in our market, 15 to 18 month supply. That has decreased a ton because more and more people are buying those homes. So you're seeing a lot of resale in the higher end because of availability of supply. But in the lower end of properties, you're not seeing nearly as much because of the lack of availability or lack of supply that we've already talked about in the lower end of the range. Now, builders are building about the same prices that they've always built. As they build the new construction, they're selling it. So they're selling more properties towards the middle than they would be in the luxury high end, if that makes sense. So remember, a median home price is just the price of the home that's in the middle. It's not an average.
Right.
It is the price of the home that's in the middle of those that were sold. It's not the price of the home that was in the middle of those that are listed or those that terminated or whatever. It's the ones that were sold. So we know that in the lower end, there's not a lot of sales because there's not a lot of availability. So you would think that the median home price would inch up as more and more people are buying in the luxury side of the coin. So this article, that's a summation of the article. I'm going to put it up there for you, producer Matt. That's a summation of the article that was on CNBC. New houses are still more expensive than existing homes, despite what the data says. The other piece of data they looked at, or you can say data. I say data.
I say
the other
data.
piece of data, you say data.
Yeah.
We say tomato. The other piece of data they looked at is the per square foot price. And in most areas, the per square foot price of a home for resale is still a lot less expensive than the per square foot price of a similar home that is new construction. So that's kind of an overview of what's happening. If you see this stat and your seller's like, or your buyer's like, well, let's go buy new construction because we can get it cheaper than resale. That's not exactly the case. All right, so we have one more article, and then I want to bring people up to talk about
Taters and taters. I told you I was going to mess up these nice easy chops for Matt, but maters and taters is so
Maters and taters, says Jeremy James.
okay.
Producer Matt says he's going to buy a castle in Arkansas and turn it into a TikTok YouTube influencer house. I'm down. Let's do this. Colin JJ Cameron knows what he's talking about. He said Ray's all about the gains. That's right. Gains on gains.
Yeah, gains on gains.
Aminos, right? Aminos. All right, Dan, tell me about mortgages.
Maters and taters, man. I can't get past maters and taters. All right, mortgage rates fall to a 2-month low, but weekly demand still drops. Why is that? Sorry, gosh dang. It's not iced tea. You have to remember it's not iced tea. Low mortgage rates are not prompting homeowners or potential home buyers to contact their lenders as other obstacles stand in their way. Total mortgage application volume fell 2.5% last week from the previous week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association's seasonally adjusted index. The decline came even though the average contract interest rate for the 30-year fixed rate decreased to 3.17% from 3.2%. That is the lowest rate since the end of February. Applications to refinance a home, which we always say are highly sensitive to weekly rate moves, still fell 1% for the week. So no one's refining right now, right?
Right.
But they were 18% lower and were 18% lower than 1 year ago. That's usually above. This is lower than 1 year ago. So a lot was happening 1 year ago. So it's possible that everyone just froze and went, oh my gosh. But to see an 18% lower than 1 year ago is pretty crazy, right? The rate on the 30-year fixed was 26 basis points higher a year ago. But rates were at record lows last fall, lower than the current rate. And this is a quote from, it's from Joel Kahn. Even with a few weeks of lower rates, most borrowers have likely already refinanced, which is why activity has decreased in 7 of the last 8 weeks. Mortgage applications to purchase a home fell 5% for the week and were 34% higher than a year ago. So that's an odd comparison because, and it means little now because the housing market ground to a halt this time last year when the Rona lockdown started. It started, a month ago, 13 months ago, I guess. It then rebounded dramatically in the summer and is now only beginning to lose steam again. So it is interesting to see that even though interest rates are historically low, I think there's a lot of buyer fatigue happening. And then I think the biggest point as far as refinance go, remember, this is all mortgage activity. So refis, purchases and all that stuff. It's interesting to see that it is down, but I think a lot of people have refied it's been low for a year. Pretty much everyone's refied. I don't see we're going to, the 18% lower is an interesting number. Is it worrisome? No, it's not worrisome to me at all, but it's interesting to see that, hey, a lot of people have refied. I don't think there's much, what are you going to do? Refi because it went down another basis point? That's not enough to really refi with closing costs and all that stuff,
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I'm gonna display this graph, and then I want to get some comments from everyone in Clubhouse and also in the commenter section here. So this is there it is. So this is in Arkansas. That was the impact of the pandy to real estate showings in Arkansas. And you can see that about March 19th, everything went down, and it was down about 30% or 20% compared to the previous year. And then about April 30th, maybe May 1st, it started going up and started becoming normalized again. So the orange is last year, the blue was the year before. And so this is the period of time that we're talking about. Comparing mortgage rates and sales and transactions from now until last year is a little bit weird because of that anomaly that happened in our marketplace due to the COVID stuff. So,
well, and you can see exactly what you're saying. You had the ebbs and flows were very little. Ray always described it, I think, earlier on in the show. And, to me personally, where, the peaks and valleys in other states might be a lot higher. They're very low. And you can see that with that blue line there. They're exactly what Ray's saying. And that goes back That blue line's 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see it's very,
Weekly
that's
average.
pretty flat. I mean, think about it. That's pretty flat, and then you
There's
see
not a lot of
that year
seasonality.
there.
I actually look back to 1965 in our market, which is when they started keeping the sales transaction numbers and such. And I looked at the seasonality of home sales, and there wasn't really much. There was a little bit of pop every March. Other than that, it's pretty kind of normalized. So there's not even a lot of seasonality in our market. So let's get to some of these comments. If you want to comment on this and you're in the clubhouse, first, I want you to be sure that you're following the real estate networking group. You can hit the green icon at the very top. Be sure you're following the club so you're notified of this. You can also hit the little plus button at the bottom, and any real estate agents that you think, or people in the industry, or even just consumers, investors, people that are smart about real estate, if you think they would have some good advice or something to add to the conversation, hit that little plus button and add them. If you want to comment on this, you hit the little hand raising button and we can bring you up and listen to your comment. Now, I know we have Logan, so I want to go to you. First, tell us, Logan, who you are, what market you're in, and what is your comment on what's happening in the economy there with the lower home prices? What are you seeing as far as new construction and uh, resale homes? What's going on in your market? Let us know.
Okay, my name is Logan Motoshami. I'm a lead data analyst for Housing Wire. So if you're looking for data, this is what I do. I'm 24/7 charged, specializing
Love
in
it.
the housing market, but generally for the economy. I think some context.
Uh-oh. Wait, Logan.
What the discussion doing so well is that from years 2020 to 2024, housing in America has the best demographic. Into 33 or roughly about 32.5 million. And then on top of that, we have the lowest mortgage rates ever recorded in history. So it shouldn't be a surprise that sales picked up during this period. Last year, if you go back to March, we got the February data. February data was the first time housing broke out, both existing home sales, new home sales, housing starts. Purchase application data was showing double-digit year-over-year growth all the way up to pre-cycle highs. But we got that data in March for February. And then what's happening in March, COVID is hitting us, and purchase application data itself was even positive, double digits, all the way up to March 18th. So pretty much all year-over-year data should be ignored, but need to put some context into it. We had about 5 weeks where we went from positive to negative declines year-over-year. And then after that 5th week, that was it. And then housing had the V-shaped recovery, which makes sense. Again, even in the worst days of COVID, we had 133 million people working still. Mortgage rates were low, demographics were good, so housing just sharply rebounded up. Then what happens is that we had a parabolic move in existing home sales from about roughly a little bit under 4 million to about 6.7, 6.8 million. That is completely abnormal. It's ruined all the year-over-year data lines. So when existing home sales have come down, and this is a big theme of my work since the end of last summer, that's perfectly normal. We're not trending at 6.7 millions. We closed 2020 at 5.64 million. So be careful of reading month to month, week to week, and year-over-year data, because the waterfall dive and parabolic rebound happening in a calendar year really can take some of the data line week to week or year over year out of context. If existing home sales starts to trend below 5.64 million, then you actually have some weakness maybe, but it's not there. So the existing home sales data falling on a month-to-month basis should have been forecasted by everyone, because we simply are not trending at those levels. In regarding to the new homes, I know you were talking about the median sales price. One thing that people get confused about is that median sales prices for new homes actually look like they were declining a few years ago. That's more of the makeshift of the sales data, because after 2014 was a really big miss for the new home, for the builders. They were looking for 20-25% sales growth. They barely finished positive, working from like extreme low levels on a historical basis. So the builders started building or selling smaller homes. What that's done is actually created median sales price to fall, just because instead of selling more $800,000 homes from Toll Brothers, they started selling more 230,000 homes. So it looks like on paper that the new home sales are cheaper. It's nowhere close. On an apple to apple basis on a square footage, they're always more expensive out there. So a lot of housing data just looks really weird, but just realize that even this year, if you look at purchase application data on a year-over-year basis, it's the best year-over-year growth in over 20 years, but we're not actually showing much growth. We're at pre-cycle highs, but some of the comps are really off just because we still had some makeup demand. And this explains like the data being strong early in the year. We never closed last year where we should have. If there was no COVID last year, existing home sales would have probably ended at 5.84 million. We ended at 5.64 million. Just because housing is primarily driven by demographics and mortgage rates. But you can see what happens is that total inventory has collapsed. If you look at total inventory from 2014 levels, they've been falling every single year as purchase application data has been rising. And what's always stabilized the markets in the previous expansion is that higher mortgage rates. Even mortgage rates over 4% stabilizes the home price growth. We've never actually had negative year-over-year nominal home prices, but in 2019, adjusting to inflation, the equivalence of rent, real home prices went negative. So it's a good stabilizing factor. We don't have that. We have really good economic data, but the bond market is basically still pricing the U.S. like it's in a recession, just because the world economies are nowhere close to us. So that's the disadvantage that housing has. And these week-to-week numbers, just remember, we're still at pre-cycle highs in demand. It's a very healthy market in the sense of demand is good, but home prices are escalating without the credit boom that we saw in 2002 to 2005. So it's a much different marketplace, but you just fall back to the two things that drive housing. Demographics, mortgage rates, both those things are the best ever recorded in U.S. history.
Wow.
Awesome. Logan,
amazing.
Last week we talked about the guy that made the bet on The Big Short. I can't remember his name now. He's a billionaire. And he was talking about exactly some of what you were talking about, and said that a lot of the reason why the home price growth is hit like it is now, and that we have the home sales that we have now, is due to liquidity in the market. And he attributed about 80% of what's going on in the housing market to liquidity and about 20% to fundamentals. But it sounds like from what you just said, you're more on the fundamentals side of the equation. Am I reading that right?
That might be Michael Burry, who did the rich rate. That's complete nonsense.
No, it's a different guy.
And this is part of my work. Part of my work is to show economic models. It's terribly boring, but I always say economics done right should be boring. This is forecasted from decades ago.
Find the name of that guy.
We knew this. Anybody that reads the census population chart just for like 5 minutes could have made a great claim that years 2020 to 2024 has the biggest housing demographics ever. So you got to be careful of what I call podcast stock traders, Twitter. These people, they're not data analysts. They're almost partly like professional troll people, because the backdrop of housing economics is extremely well. Like if you go back in the history, you've never had more people ages 27 to 33, and the first time median home buyer is 33. And if you go back to 2010, it was completely different. Biggest age group, it's 19 to 25 now. The biggest age group right now is age 29. So we just have a lot more home buyers. And if you go back to even 1996 levels, it's really rare for existing home sales to come below 4 million. It's only happened 3 times. 2 of those events were actually the COVID-19 induced lows. And then, the 2008 time where demographics actually got weaker after the housing crash. So to have existing home sales like crash or do anything below 4 million, that would mean that even with the best demographics and the lowest mortgage rates ever, home sales have to break under 3 million, which has never happened post 1996. So you have a lot of what I call housing bubble boys, or I coined the term forbearance crash bros, because
there you go, perfect,
really bad. And it's just the basic, simple demographic and mortgage rate story. You kind of don't want to overthink it. It's like the battle now going out for 2020 to 2024, this unique 5-year period in history, is when does affordability hit, and how do we manage that? Because it's just really rare in the U.S. post 1996. And the reason I use 1996 is because that's another wave lower in mortgage rates and adjusting to population. Our workforce grew to have below 4 million existing home sales. And I think if you go into these podcast stock trader or YouTube crash site stuff, it's all speculative. It's not true. It's primarily driven by mortgage primary resident buyers. And if you look from 2014 to 2020, you can see that demand picked up. total inventory falls, and now we have an inventory shortage without the credit boom. So it's the simple version is just demographics and mortgage rates, and then the secondary third parts of housing economics gets into credit. There's no credit boom. If you look at FICO scores, loan quality, it's the best we've ever had in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Fixed low debt costs versus rising wages, nested equity, and housing tenure is at 10 years from 1985 to 2007. It was 5 years. People are staying in their home longer. And they don't think like stock traders or anything, because if you sell a property and you have to find somewhere to live. And over many decades, it's just got to the point where just people are living in their homes longer. There's over 141 million units. The baby boomers never really downsized. Like people said, they always talk about the silver tsunami. It never happened.
Yep.
And this is creating unhealthy home price growth from years 2020 to 2021. But you could see that there's not an affordability crisis. If there was an affordability crisis, you wouldn't have demand here. You wouldn't have multiple bid offers. You wouldn't have people putting in more cash to close. But it's just, this is a frustrating market, I think, for a lot of people, because inventory hasn't picked up. The people you're getting outbid by your American citizen who just simply makes more money than you. It's not like BlackRock is buying, $3-4 million million homes every month. This is just your fellow American in this inventory crunch is just outbidding you. And that's why it becomes an unhealthy market, not just for buyers, but also for sellers. Because if you're thinking about, well, I got to sell, then where am I going to go? So it's different if you have an investment home and you don't have that living situation there. But for a homeowner looking to sell, there's now, well, where am I going now? It's different if you move from another city to a different area. But if you have to sell your homes, you got to find somewhere to live. And I think that's some frustrations for sellers on this part.
Yeah, you've pretty much summarized everything that we've covered in the last 3 years.
Yeah, all in 5 minutes.
That's right. And what's funny is we've covered your articles about the housing crash bros, and we all kind of laughed about it. And really, I think that day that we did it, we covered a couple of the articles that were talking about the housing crash that was going to be coming. Yeah. And then we read your article and said, well, check out what Logan's saying. So if you guys want to hear more of what Logan said, I've got a guy, Jonathan Pyron. He said, where's this information published for review? You can find more of Logan at Housing Wire. He's a great writer. I mean, we've read some of his stuff in the past too.
Yeah. When he writes, though, I believe it's the same articles I'm talking about. He writes from his point of view. Here's what I'm seeing, not, so it's very, it is a little more personalized, but it's his data and here's what I'm seeing. And I went out to do this and I thought this, but I noticed that, and it was different. Really cool. His articles are really, really cool over on Housing Wire. By the way, can we get his opinion on Susie Orman?
Logan, you'll have to tell me if I pronounced your name wrong, but it's Logan Matashami, right?
Matashami.
Perfect. Yeah. And the forbearance crash bros was a design term, because what happened is that housing didn't crash last year. So what do housing bubble boys always do? They move the goalpost. I mean, this has been starting since 2012. Now, technically, if you believe in a housing bubble, all bubbles have to go back to the original price point in 2012. I mean, I'm being graceful by using 2012. They used 1996 levels. That means right now you need a 76.5% crash in home prices in 1 year to justify a housing bubble pump. This is how terrible. These are like the worst
wait.
we've ever produced in this country. Like it's to say that you could have the best housing demographic patch ever recorded in history and the lowest mortgage rates, and that warrants a 76% crash in 1 year. So the forbearance crash bros was this full 1 year process of writing multiple articles to explain people why forbearance isn't a credit bubble foreclosure. And forbearance, the total numbers were actually smaller than the shadow inventory was in 2012. I said that over time, this data is going to come, it's going to go down. A lot of people who took it originally don't need it. If you look at the loan debt profiles, as soon as if they lost their jobs, and they're going to get their jobs back quickly, they'll be able to stay in their house. Within 1 calendar year, forbearance total numbers have been cut in half. That's not what the crash bros were talking about. They were talking about 10 to 15 to possibly 20 million homes in forbearance and the big collapse of home prices. The exact opposite happened, because these are not data people. These are professional troll marketing artists. They run around. Some of them are 100%. Stock traders. Some of them are crazy YouTube crash sites. And they don't believe their stuff either, because if they were, and some of these are real estate investors, they would have sold their properties. None of them did. They didn't do it last year. They're not doing it this year. So it's all just a marketing troll act. And that's how you could call them on their own BS.
So speaking of Susie Orman, Um, and I'll only mention it because last year about this time, she came out with a Facebook post that talked about the crashing market and everything that was going to happen. And I did a YouTube video and I broke down each one of her points and talked about how ridiculous it was. And you've totally you've got my back on this, obviously, because the point she even told her people, don't buy a house until November or December of 2020 because then you'll get it cheaper because of the crash that's happening.
50% crash.
Yeah, she said it'll be 50% off. So what you're talking about, the forbearance crash bros, I think, quote unquote financial advisors like that, they're after the clicks, right? If they could scare you, then you'll buy their book.
If last year, there's an article I wrote about home price growth being too hot, for my own blog, but it shows that Americans aren't as soft as these, pundits, stock traders, and crash sites are. I mean, there was a pause for about 5 weeks. Then everybody said, "Oh, I'm still alive. I'm still working. I'm buying a house." Think about this. Susie Orman probably made one of the worst financial calls in the history of the United States of America. And Americans didn't listen. Americans just went back and bought homes because it's the cost of shelter to your own capacity to own a debt. It's not an investment. These people need somewhere to live. And think about all of them that didn't care what Susie Orman said. They bought a home, they live in it, and they don't have to deal with this market. It was a horrific call that on a historical basis goes as one of the top worst calls ever. Because these are not data people. Like nobody in their right mind would say housing would crash with this big of a demographic crash and low mortgage rates. That's why I try to keep it as simple. I mean, this is how bad this group was. You have the best housing demographics ever, and then you have the lowest mortgage rates ever, and that's going to warrant a 50% crash within a year. It took like 3 years for housing to peak in 2005 to get down to the 2008 recession. That's why I always use these chart models to express how different it is. And anybody who said that was just a failure. And I don't even think they believe it. Like if all these real estate investors who are supposedly experts, they would have all sold their homes and none of them did it. So it's fake news, or if you want to call it that. But when you actually think about it, these are not actually data people. So economics done right is boring, and always follow people that have economic models, because like my thing is that you always want to be the detective, not the troll.
Yes. But I have to admit, Logan, we do tend to troll people with our own headlines at times and thumbnails because it gets the views. And if we can say, hey guys, come check out this article about the pending crash, and then we share the article, but then kind of
break it down
behind it and compare it to your article too, it hopefully will start to educate, especially the consumers, but also the professionals that should already know this stuff. And I was on a podcast with Justin last week, and he was talking about experts in the industry and the news and things like that. And I said, look, as real estate agents, we're the ones that those news articles should be coming to, asking us, hey, what do you think is going to happen? And us being able to tell them with the elegance that you just laid out, Logan, of, hey, here's probably what's going to happen. And you don't have to be as detailed because you're a data guy. There's a lot of real estate agents that are not data people, but you could still have a broader understanding of what's happening in the marketplace and be able to communicate that to the consumer. Because if you can, then it'll benefit you, it'll benefit them, and you're not creating this weird panic among your friends and family who are relying on you to be the compass for their guidance and direction. Because most people aren't buying a house for an investment. Most people are buying a house because it's a better investment than renting a house, and they need somewhere to live. And maybe they want to paint the walls and they want to put in a different stovetop, and they can't do that when they're in a rental. And that's the primary driver for people to buy a house, is that they're moving, and it is a better investment than rental.
Well, then the other side of it, if it costs about the same or even less to own a home versus rent a home, then people are going to, they're just going based on what they're paying out per month. It's not I'm not going to invest, live in this for a year and flip it. They're not thinking that way. The average person doesn't think that way. They're like, cool, I can buy a house now. I'm going to buy it. I think it's fairly simple. I think sorry, go ahead.
Here's one thing about renting and owning. Like, I retired last year, but I was in the mortgage industry for about 24 years. And information, right? The structures of getting clicks shackles people from actually telling the truth, because telling the truth is boring. I mean, let's admit it. Economics is not the most exciting thing in the world, So in this day and age, even some really smart people have to highlight some. I mean, marketing is inherently to make us think we're missing something, right? So you can't say, like I say, hey, guess what? I'm going to talk about prime age labor force employment based on demographic profiles going back to 1820. That's boring. Nobody wants to read that. Yeah. So it's just, it's hard for people to get information. Now, for me, since I'm retired, I don't need to create these headlines. I could just simply talk about data. But on the entertainment side, I'd like to highlight these people, because there's a book that I'm working on, and it highlights that these were the worst talented Americans in our history. Like, nobody in their right mind would actually say housing was going to crash when you have demographics this good and rates this low. It would be 2.5 times faster decline in sales than the housing bubble years, which peaked at 7.26 million. It took 3 years to even get down to 3.45 million. So that's a society we live in. Where the structures of information is shackled by giving that you have to get people to click, and that I understand, right? And it's just a function of the world we live in today.
Very cool. Well, thanks for joining the show via Clubhouse, man. You have imparted a ton of knowledge for us. I mean, it's kind of fun. We read your articles, so it's cool that when you have someone whose articles that you read and reference on the show actually joins the show, which is what we say and what William Tong says is the magic of Clubhouse. So very, very cool. Thanks so much for joining the show. If you want to follow Logan, you can find him on Housing Wire. You can also find I'll put his Instagram. It's just his name. So it's Logan Mohtashami, Mohtashami. And so you can find him, follow him, because he's one of the guys that we see a lot as providing the data that's useful and helpful, and not just stuff that is clickbait worthy. So Logan, I'm going to reach out to you. I'll have Matt Clinton reach out to you, and hopefully we'll get you on the show on the video part of this too. So thank you so much. I want to get to Shawnee. Hey, thanks for joining the show. What part of what Logan dissected and what the articles that we were talking about do you want to talk about?
Well, he dissected so much, and this is my first time coming in this room, so I hope to come in again. It's so informative. I love this kind of thing on Clubhouse data from all across the country. It's so helpful. So I actually was going to ask about the moratorium and his thoughts and everybody's thoughts on how that's going to affect the inventory. And I think he kind of answered that. I know I got a phone call briefly when he was talking about it. I was like, oh no, that's the whole reason I really wanted to ask. Because I wanted to ask about the moratorium on evictions, which I know is going to end in June. And I just saw an article that some states are extending, like New York State, they're going to extend it. But that and the moratorium on foreclosures, I wanted to know, and I think he mentioned it, where can I find the data source of people that are in forbearance? I'm just interested to know how many state by state, if there's a way we can find that out. I know he's saying there's too much hype being placed on that, but I would love to know what the actual numbers are, because you're right. People are always talking about, oh, there's all this shadow inventory coming, but nobody really, I don't have the numbers to see, how many people are utilizing forbearance. And my thought is, like, I think he echoed, a lot of them are going to have positive equity because of the price appreciation. Yep. They'll be able to sell retail. And again, of course, some people keep their hand in the sand and they won't do that, even though they probably could. But I just would like to know the numbers. I'm wondering about that. And just to tell you what's going on in my marketplace, I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania outside of Philadelphia in Bucks County, and I also work the Central New Jersey market. And what I'm saying is the same thing that most people are saying, very low inventory, bidding wars and things like that. I do a lot of leases too. That's why I was so interested in the moratorium on evictions, because I work with a lot of investors and I do a lot more leasing than most average agents, is at least my marketplace for sure. So I just want to know if anybody has a thought on that, how we can get those numbers, and how it will affect, other than what Logan said, and I hope to hear him back again, how it is going to affect I apologize if he said that, because I was on the phone for a minute or so.
I don't think he said that directly, but what we've talked about on the show in the past is that, and you can watch if you Google the word "forburned," you will probably find our commercial, because when forbearance first happened, if you guys recall, you could call your bank and say, hey, tell me what this forbearance thing is. And then you get off the phone after
You're
just
in
hearing
forbearance.
about what it was, and you were in forbearance. Like that was what was happening. And so you were foreburned. And we did a fake like late night infomercial news thing, which was hilarious about, have you been foreburned? So producer Matt's gotta link that up. So but and that's one of the reasons, like he said, that 50% of those who were in forbearance are now out of forbearance. But one of the reasons why a lot of the economists and the people that are watching what's happening politically and also the numbers are saying, look, guys, this forbearance thing is not as big of a deal as everyone makes it out to be, is because one, the numbers are pretty low. I think I last checked, it was like 2 million and it was 1 million people. So the numbers are not huge in the number of people that are in forbearance, but those who are in forbearance, the government is urging all of the servicers to work with those folks to either add that to the end of the loan or come up with some kind of long-term payment agreement or do anything except foreclose. So a lot of the naysayers, what he was talking about, the foreclosure, what do you call them? It's not forbearance bros. What was it?
He did, yeah. The
Crash
forbearance
bros.
Crash
Yeah.
Bros, yeah.
So those people that are saying, hey, the market's crashing, they look at forbearance as a big reason why. But in reality, most of the time, those people are going to be able to work with their servicer to either refinance or add it to the loan. Some people are saying they can move a 30-year mortgage to a 40-year mortgage and add the missed payments. So, and there you go. Producer Matt just linked up the foreburned video. So I appreciate that. Check that out. There is a list that you can get. I'm not sure how to obtain it, but there is a list that you can get of the people that are in forbearance. Your title companies may be able to help you provide that list, but the list itself may not be wholly useful other than letting people know and educating them. Hey, if you're at risk of foreclosure, please don't foreclose, sell your house, because they probably have equity wrapped up in their home.
Probably most likely with gains up as high as they are in the last year, you most likely have equity. So don't fall for these forbearance people.
And the equity alone is what's going to prevent people from foreclosing.
Right.
People that foreclose are upside down, and that's why they have to do short sales, try to do a short sale first, and then they wind up getting foreclosed on. There's hardly anyone ever that forecloses with a ton of equity, unless they just like forgot they owned a house.
Right. Oh, dang. I forgot I had 200 grand in there.
I think that they're going to keep their head in the sand. I would always try to reach out to people. That would be my thought if I was going to market to those people or try to help them, to reach out to them and say, hey, listen, do you realize how much equity you're no longer underwater because all this equity that happened? But I guess there's a school of thought, people that have worked with them saying that they're just not going to even pay attention to that because they ignore notices and things like that. So I'm hoping not, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would say if you're farming a particular area, maybe sending out notices and information in that area that you already work and just kind of getting that out there and then telling other people, hey, if you know someone in forbearance, please be sure to share this with them. You can get the list yourself, but when it comes from a friend, then maybe they'll take more stock in that too. So I would take some alternative routes. You could also produce video in your area, and then, you have to do a 15-mile radius if you market on Facebook. You can do a little bit closer if you put it on YouTube or Google. But putting out some videos about, hey, if you're in forbearance, here's how to get out. That would be useful information. And then one of those ways that they can get out is by selling their home. At the time of sale, they will have to pay up to that moment, but they can get out through selling their home. Jeremy James says 50% of homes have 50% equity, according to KCM. KCM is Keeping Current Matters.
Yeah. And by the way, this article is all about a month old, but 4.96% are in forbearance, which if you look back through when forbearance started, there were bigger declines, and then it's been a steady decline since June, because we were at 9% in June of 2020. So there's been a steady decline. Now we're under 5%.
Melissa Mara said, I think the last I heard there were 50,000 pending eviction cases in my county right now, and they're trying to figure out how to handle them. Yeah, basically the evictions and the foreclosures. There's a lot of people that should be foreclosed on that weren't foreclosed on because there's a foreclosure moratorium. So
and people that should be evicted but weren't evicted. Same.
Correct. And so a lot of that's going to work its way through, and you could just picture the headlines now in the future about all the dire things that are happening and how bad it will be, et cetera, when in reality, it's basically a backlog of cases that should have been handled last year that weren't. And so I wonder if once that moratorium, both on the eviction and the foreclosures, have been lifted, if you see a high number come through initially, and then of course it dies down and becomes pretty normal, like a pretty normal amount. But I mean, just get ready for the headlines, guys. And that's one of the things that we could do, is to inform the consumer about what's happening.
And we firmly believe that we would probably have 20, 40, 50,000 views every week if we were more sensationalistic, but we're just not. And part of the reason we do the show is obviously to help get you guys the data out there, but to break down the headlines and get past the headlines. Because we noticed earlier on when we started the show and we started reading, it was like, wait, the headline says this, but it's really not like that at all. So, I love that we have Logan on here just talking. He's like, economics are not click-worthy. They're not the most exciting thing. And obviously having him reference on the show and then having him be on the show is really cool. But we firmly believe that we would be maybe a lot more popular, but we're here for the ones who want to know the truth and not get clickbaited.
That's right.
Yeah. 2000%.
Well, thanks so much for the feedback. Eureka, you came up. Do you have something to add on the Clubhouse side of things? Did you want to add any comments?
Yes. I wanted to say happy birthday to Ray. I
Oh.
hope you're having a wonderful birthday and you're so awesome to do your show on your birthday, rain or shine, no matter what day it is. So happy birthday, Ray. And if you PTR, I changed my picture to that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eureka. I appreciate it. And PTR, for those of you who are not on Clubhouse yet, all you Droid users who will one day be there and addicted.
That's so nice.
PTR is pull to refresh. When you do that, if somebody changes their profile picture, you'll see it after you PTR. So there you go.
You have to PTR.
You got a PTR, pull to refresh.
Awesome.
Awesome.
That comment, by the way, from Eureka is a ray of sunshine.
Oh, look at that. That's so sweet. Everything is so sweet. Okay, so Jeremy Jane says, headline, evictions and foreclosures up 2,000%. Yeah, get ready. Get ready.
And then you read it and it's like, oh, they were already there. They're just happening now.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of stats and facts and data and economics and politics, we have another one to cover for you. Biden's $15,000 first-time homebuyer tax credit is now a bill. And this article is from Housing Wire. So there you go. Speak of the devil. President Joe Biden called for a first-time homebuyer $15,000 tax credit, and Congress has answered the call. Now, remember last week we talked about a $25,000 grant that was not a tax credit, explicitly
for first-generation buyers.
Yeah, for first-generation buyers in disadvantaged situations. And we're not real sure how they're going to define that, how they'll look at that. So
but it is, remember, it's not on the national level or the federal level. It's on the state level. They've left it to states to figure this out.
Yeah, just like Melissa Marr says. But it was $25K. It was. So there still is that bill in existence, or that proposal in existence.
This is tax credit, not grant.
Yes, this one is a tax credit. So the way tax credits work, let's say you make $50,000 and you get a $15,000 tax credit. It lowers your taxable income by $15,000. So previously you could be taxed on $50,000. Now you're going to be taxed on $35,000.
So this is great. I only make $15,000 a year. So now I'm just good. Like just
zero.
I've zeroed out. This is perfect for me. Thank you, Joe.
Right. Now, Julie Moon, Ever the Cynic, said, does it really make it more difficult for buyers, more competitive? Yes, it does make it more difficult and more competitive. So that's one of the things we can talk about too, because if you're giving people basically a tax credit of $15,000, let's say they were in a 20% tax bracket, that means it lowers their taxable income by lowers their taxable income by $15,000, but they save basically 20% of that $15,000.
Yeah.
So I think there are some ways where this will work. Previously, there was a $7,500 tax credit that in the next year was increased to an $8,000 tax credit. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. It was back in 2008. And that you had a lot of people entering the market and buying houses because they got this $8,000 tax credit. Very different from the grant that's proposed. This tax credit appears to be for sorry, I'm getting a call. This tax credit appears to be for first-time home buyers, kind of no matter the situation. So this is one that kind of covers everyone, which was a little bit of our gripe last week when we were talking about this $25,000 grant and who's to decide if, my mom and dad bought a house, except I don't live with them and haven't lived with them, and I am economically disadvantaged now. I can't take advantage of this $25,000 grant, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Well, here's something for everyone, a $15,000 tax credit. This article on Housing Wire says the proposal differs from a different piece of legislation designed to give first-time, first-generation home buyers down payment assistance in the form of a grant at closing. Lawmakers led by Maxine Waters published the down payment assistance bill last week. But the White House spokesperson said it is not part of Biden's larger infrastructure bill, which is interesting. There's a couple of quotes on this stuff. Let me get to this bottom here. Let's see. It's talking about the effects of what happened in 2008, $7,500, and then 2009, $8,000 tax credit. It says that year, an independent Internal Revenue Service watchdog found that 74,000 questionable claims for the tax credit slipped by the agency.
That's what I was going to ask. How do you get this? Do you have to take this if you don't want it? And then what about the people that are going to take it when they shouldn't really get it?
In some cases, in some instances, borrowers were younger than 18, had owned a home within the past 3 years, or claimed the credit without purchasing the home. So they go back and retroactively apply that. I just thought that was an interesting number. About 74,000 people they found it had slipped by them. So the refundable, this is a quote from Shaw. Who is Shaw? Sonny Shaw is the president of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. He said, the refundable tax credit proposed in the bill would increase home ownership among low and moderate income Americans, especially those from marginalized communities with historically low home ownership rates. So how are you feeling about the tax credit, Dan?
Well, I mean, it's a good thing if it's there, if it's for, I just worry about what it'll affect if I have to take this. Do I have to take it? Because in theory, it's a good thing. Right now, if I made 150 grand, now I'm making less. But is it going to really affect those people that make over a certain amount, or is it really just for people that make the lower amount? So
it doesn't look like it has an income. And what I'm reading here, it doesn't look like it has an income thing. There is a link on Housing Wire. If you click the down payment assistance bill and the Biden's larger infrastructure bill, and there's also a link to the $15,000 tax credit. You can check some of these details yourself. Let's see. The program will be targeted to low and middle income earners. Participants must also make more than 160% of the area median in income. No more than 160% of the area.
Okay, so not everyone gets it.
So, yeah.
But then, but theoretically, right, if it goes from 50 grand, sorry, go ahead.
The home's purchase must be no more than 110% of the median purchase price.
Okay, so that's a pretty big caveat. And then, won't there be extra cash technically laying around to push back into the economy or back into home purchases for bigger down payments?
Supposedly, so this supposedly would save money for taxes people are not paying. And so that should inject some more money into the economy, or it would make those people who quote unquote can't afford a house. Maybe it would.
But is it enough though?
Is it enough? That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
The tax credit that we did previously seemed to be enough. There were a ton of people that bought because there was a tax credit, and there was actually, I can't remember the year that stopped, but we had a ton of people come through towards the end. They were like, I got to buy a house within the next 30 days. Oh, why? What's your motivation? Are you moving for work? Are you moving for this? Are you moving for that? And they're like, no, the tax credit runs out. I've got to get it. I've got to go under contract. So we were seeing that happen. And so I think there was some encouragement for people to use those tax credits during that time period. I think there will be this time too. So overall, I think tax credits are a better idea than grants for the most part. I like the tax credits more.
Yeah.
The grants are okay, but the grants get a little bit iffy if so many stipulations are put, and there's so many rules that it may not impact those who you want it to impact most. That's my concern with the grant.
I think if you go up to Julie Moon's comment, why can't we get a tax credit for capital gains? That would put it, I believe that would put an influx, because Jeremy James says it, we don't need more buyers. We need more sellers right now. So what are we doing? And I get the whole, let's boost the American dream, right? It's all own a home, get your little chunk of America type of thing. But we don't need people changing their names to buy a home.
Producer Matt.
As producer Beardless says. But, we need more sellers. So what about a capital gains? If you sell your home in the next whatever, then either there are none, or if you're over that because it's 250, I don't know, that's just a California thing, but the capital gains taxes will negate it, or we'll do it a second. If you've already sold and used your capital gains exemption, you can use it again. I think that would help because there's a lot of of that silver. He called it silver tsunami, silver.
Yeah,
which
didn't happen. That's what he said.
That didn't happen. Remember, my prediction was it's going to happen, but it's going to take 10 years.
Yeah.
That maybe they bought and then they used, maybe they bought in the early 70s and they bought again in the 80s when prices had gone up pretty, and then they used their capital gains exemption in like the 90s. They've already used it once. Maybe that's an incentive, but something's got to be, how do we loosen up more inventory here?
Jeremy James says, I'd rather have grants for down payment and closing costs. Yes, me personally, I would rather have grants, but an influx of people with free money to buy homes in the lower 1/3 of the market right now is not a good idea. So economically, I don't like that idea. I would rather have people buy, it only says 110% of the median. So you're still targeting the middle. I'd rather kind of loosen up some of those rules. That way people can buy the mid-range and down, maybe. I don't know. But even then, just like what Julie says, we don't need a ton of buyers right now.
Buyers are there.
The capital gains credit would encourage investors to sell their single family homes. That's a good point. And right now they can make a lot of money. And so if they were to offload their single family homes, it could inject some inventory.
Yeah. For those investors who have a portfolio, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 homes.
Yeah.
Maybe they sell off 50 of them. They keep 50 and that influx of cash still comes in, but they're maximizing it because of the the exemption on the capital gains.
I want to bring up someone from Clubhouse. Mike has come up. I saw him flash his mic a couple of times. So Mike, what do you have to add to this discussion here?
Hey guys, first off, happy birthday, Ray. I hope it's a good one.
Thank you.
The way you're describing that credit, you're describing it as a deduction, and it's actually a credit towards the taxes you owe. So it doesn't matter what your income, well, as long as you're within that threshold. But let's say you owe 10,000 in taxes.
Oh, right.
Owe 10,000. You have that $15,000 credit.
That's
so
right.
It has a greater impact on the taxpayer's bottom line than just a deduction, the way you're describing it.
Yeah, that's right. My bad.
And if it's refundable, I mean, so let's say they pay nothing in income taxes for whatever reason, they might be getting a refund for 15 grand. So
that's what I was saying.
It will have a bigger impact than just a write-off.
You're right. Thank you for that. And thanks for doing that. I don't know where my brain was, but yeah, you're exactly right on that. So sorry. I think
we read it right. We translated it right, but yeah, I'm glad he made the point, but that's what I was saying about the influx of cash, either towards just back into the economy or to purchase homes. Wait, can you get the tax credit and the grant?
Well, that's one of the things I was wondering. If they're both passed, I guess you could.
So if I've rented my whole life and I make within that 160, no higher than 160%, and then I buy a home that's only 110% of the median price, can I take advantage of all that?
Huh. Right. That's interesting. Let's see. I'm looking for where it kind of broke this down in the article. Give me just a second. Mike, thanks again for talking about that. All right. It's terrible. There's no way I can find it so fast. I'm scanning this whole article trying to find where it talks about the details and if it was refundable or not.
Control F.
Now, a lot of this hasn't been passed yet. So also keep that in mind.
And we'll cover it as things are passed and moved forward, because right now Schoolhouse rocks. I'm only a bill.
Yeah, it says the refundable tax credit in the refundable tax credit proposed in the bill would increase homeownership among low. So it does say refundable. That's the only time it says refundable in the whole article. So we could dive deep. Now, it hasn't passed yet, so it could be changed 267 times between now and the time it's passed. But it is being presented now as a bill.
Yeah, you still get your $15,000 credit, but part of that $15,000 goes to funding whale babies in Antarctica, and
yeah.
Sorry, Ray. I apologize. I went a little to the right there. I apologize. My bad. I have to lean left on the show. I apologize.
I'm actually looking at the proposal right now, and this is a bunch of gobbledygook, but I'm trying to find what the rules are and if it is refundable, and I don't see it right now, but if I find it, we'll add it to something.
Well, and then where's this article if people want to go find it themselves?
You can go to housingwire.com and find the article about the $15,000 first-time home buyer tax credit. And there's an article about it being explained.
And we love Housing Wire. I think only a few times in the course of doing the show have they really done like a clickbaity kind of thing. Housing Wire is pretty just here's what's happening.
Yeah, and when they did do the clickbaity thing, they got you to click on it, and then they kind of shared the truth in it.
Yeah,
for the most part. I think there was only one that we disagreed with out of all the ones they had. So,
yeah.
All right. So I can't find, I was looking for how they broke it down and if it was refundable. I don't see it right now, but as you talk about, thanks, producer Matt. He just popped it into the chat for those of you watching either on Facebook or YouTube. So you can click there for more information. Thanks, Mike, for coming up again. So Dan, why don't you take the next article? What's going on with Compass? They're back in the news. They were in the news last week, getting sued by someone that said the
antitrust and
antitrust.
Yeah.
Well, was it antitrust or was it the?
It was the non-disclosure agreements and
non-compete.
There you go. Sorry, non-compete.
So they've been in the show 3 weeks running. This is the third week. 2 weeks ago, it was another like non-compete or Howard Hanna. Yep, they weren't happy with it, and so we only cover this stuff just to kind of keep up with what's going. We are we're platform agnostic. We are for the most part device agnostic, except you should all use Apple devices. And then
except for when you realize that Samsung is much more superior. But yeah, other than that, use Apple. Yeah.
And we are broker agnostic. However, when a large brokerage makes a move and buys a piece of technology or makes a move with other agencies and things like that, we do report on it just so as an industry, you guys kind of know what's going on. But a lot of people in California, like this doesn't even impact me at all. Like, we don't even use this thing that they bought. But Compass bought something, and that does impact a lot of agents in California. So Dan, explain what's going on here.
So I'll kind of cover it quickly because it is akin to Zillow buying Showing Time. Obviously, that's more of a national thing. It affects all of us. But Compass, an acquisition that they made could worry. And again, this is only a California thing right now. But Compass announced Monday that it has reached an agreement to buy San Francisco-based real estate transaction platform Glide, a deal that some California real estate agents may feel uneasy about. Now it's pretty much just, this is a longer article, so I am going to skim through it a little bit, but if you want it, this one's Housing Wire as well. So if you are in California, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. We have some California agents on the Clubhouse there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and how it's going to affect you, because I use, and we as a team use Glide for our property entry and disclosure form. The form that we have to fill out. I think that's a national thing we have to fill out before entering a property. We just put it in our agent comments. You literally just click the link and you can send an offer through there. We don't do it for offer. We use a different company. Again, I'm not going to talk about them because Compass or Zillow will buy them. And I don't want that, but you can submit an offer through there. You can put together a P through them. It's very, very simple. It's really simplified the process over the last year. And now it's with the California regional MLS, it's pretty much used by all of us. So the buy is Compass's first since the residential brokerage started publicly trading shares earlier this month. Glide, which was founded in 2017, provides tools like e-signature and digitization, it's a tough word to say, of sales processing forms. Suspicious real estate agents and rival brokerage heads in California will worry that the deal could funnel information about California home sales to Compass thanks to a recent partnership Glide announced with the California Association of Realtors. In March, Glide entered a deal with the California Regional Multiple Listing Service. That's my multiple listing service, which is the National Association of Realtors sanctioned marketplace for California home listings viewable by all California Association of Realtors. Under the agreement, the California Association of Realtors gained access to comprehensive suite of tools, allowing them to create, manage, negotiate, and close offers on real property, all at no additional cost and integrated into their MLS platforms. In effect, said one area broker who wants to remain anonymous. All the agents in California were starting to use Glide for backroom technology. Now, those agents will have to switch to another transaction platform, the broker said, or risk private information about sales to Compass. But in a statement on Monday, the firms added that all Glide user data will be housed on separate dedicated servers from Compasses. In a blog post, Sebastian Tonkin said the company's terms of use and privacy policy were updated, and the firm will also hire an independent privacy expert to ensure competitors' data won't be accessible. Unclear is whether the California MLS may renege its relationship with Glide. And they say, our agreement with Glide prohibits sharing members' data without members' consent. California Association of Realtors spokesperson emailed on Monday. Of course, CAR is examining all of its options to make sure the data integrity and CAR's high standards of privacy for its members and their clients are protected. So it's interesting. And again, if you want this one, if you want to go see it, if you are a California agent, it's on Housing Wire. But it is interesting to me. To me, this one doesn't, I'm not as, actually, I'm not really worried about anything, but with the showing time purchase by Zillow, because it's not as, to me, as effectual as, I don't remember when it was, right? 2 years ago when Compass bought Contactually.
Yeah.
That was a system that a lot of agents used. And it was like, dude, this is straight up data. Glide, it'll be some personal data, but it'll be more kind of what's going on with pending home sales and closes and stuff, in my opinion. I don't worry about this one too much. Plus, we don't have to use Glide. We have other options.
So in the article, did it say that it anonymizes the data and keeps it private, or it totally has a firewall in between? It won't have any access to the data at all.
It says it's totally separate servers, separate housing for those servers, separate everything. And they're hiring someone to monitor that data. So they have contracts in place that say it has, just like the same thing with showing time. No. We have a contract in place, but we'll see what CAR does, California Association of Realtors does, as they monitor this. What is Compass really doing? Now, they do consider themselves a technology company. They're not. They're just a real estate company, but they have a lot of cash and they can buy these things.
They have a lot of cash given to them from venture capitalists. So I'm trying to figure out why they would buy it other than to integrate the systems. Maybe it's an acqui-hire where they're trying to get the talent from those who developed Glide onto their Compass platform, and then have them do double duty, where you have this Glide technology, and then you also have whatever technologies Compass is developing for their own agents. I can see that happening.
Well, and it's one of the, what do you call those, right? It's a vertical integration, right? When you add on, it's not that they're not developing themselves, or is it more horizontal?
This one would be more horizontal, like a service that's similar.
Right.
It would be a
they didn't create their own.
Right. It would be a horizontal integration that affects the agent. It's not a horizontal integration that affects the consumer. Right. So a horizontal integration that affects the consumer would be a title company, a lender, etc. A horizontal integration that affects the agent is buying the piece of technology that your brokerage is using anyway. Right. So we use SkySlope for a lot of transaction management. If we bought SkySlope, that would be a horizontal integration. We're already using it. It's kind of a partner service for our agents. Right. But it wouldn't do much for the consumer. But it's an interesting acquisition. Do you see anything in the Glide app that you're like, man, if our brokerage would just buy this application or software, they could have done all of this stuff with it? Do you see anything in there that you're like, this would be a great idea to just integrate seamlessly into what we're already doing?
I think it's kind of what Mario said. There's just because you buy a tech company doesn't make you a tech company. I think they're just trying to keep up the facade of, hey, we're a tech company. But in my opinion, I don't use Glide. Like I said, we have it on our listings in our agent remarks to, if you want to put together a feed, because you can literally do it on your phone. But me personally, I do it when I'm setting up my showings. I go over to Car Forms, with California Association of Realtors, and then I go to Forms. So I don't use Glide. I do it separately, and then it emails me and my clients the link. We sign it, and then it comes back through. So other than I mean, it does have the data there, but it's all in essentially a PDF form that's been plugged in. Like, why? It's not really phone numbers and kind of, are they selling soon? It's kind of, they're already attached to an agent. So I wouldn't worry about this too much. And personally, I don't worry about it at all.
Is it like docu-signing?
It's just docu-signing stuff. And but it does simplify it. Glide is pretty cool, and our transaction coordinators do use it as well as kind of the transaction house. Again, I don't. I have transaction rooms in those car forms or zip forms, but they do use so there is data there, but I don't worry about it like I would like a contactually, or I even showing time. I don't worry about it, but it's just more of, I think it's more of a, you puff up your chest because, well, I use that and now Zillow owns it. I'm gonna do something else, but I was telling the contributors group yesterday that pretty much when I show houses in LA, no one uses showing time. It's all Calendly
that's crazy. I feel like that is not built for that at all, but that is wild.
It works really well. It's very
I use it for people to set appointments with me and like set up coffees and stuff like that.
It's the same thing. And then you have to check a box saying, this is notating that I'm going to send my PEAD form, PEAD form on the day of the showing with that day. So it does say that, and you can add guests if you want. So if your clients, it's actually pretty cool to use Calendly. It's not as overarching as showing time, but I mean, Calendly does put things in your calendar, so it's similar, but it's just nice. It's interesting. It is interesting. It's really seamless. It lays out. Showing time is a little unuser friendly as far as the look goes. Calendly is very, very smooth and very, very current. And you'd literally look through. I click on the 27th or the 28th. Here's what's available. Oh, I don't have that. Let's go to the 29th and click on it. And then it's confirmed right away, though. It's right away confirmed every time.
Showing time needs a revamp. Maybe that's why Zillow was trying to buy them, so they could revamp their look and get them off the geosites look and into something maybe a little more modern.
Yeah.
All right. So we have had Mia. She's joined us from Clubhouse. She's also been on our show before. So I wanted to welcome her and ask her if she had any feedback about this article, or was it the one before, Mia?
Actually, if it's okay, I have two comments. This first one is
That's okay.
I was not aware it was that long ago, but Zillow bought Dotloop. Now they just bought Showing Time.
Yeah.
Well, basically, they're also now realtors and brokers. And they have their own, real estate companies. What is keeping them? I couldn't figure out why they bought Showing Time. It's like, but they're going to know how many showings that each property has, when it's sold pending, when it hits the market. And as
in
far
real
as
time,
Dotloop, they have all the contracts. Now, what's keeping them from collecting the data? It's not like they're selling it. They're collecting it and using it for their own profit to say how much they're going to buy a house for cash, because they are now offering that. What can we do as realtors to try to keep this from happening?
Now, Mia, they said that they're not going to do that.
Right. They also said they weren't going to be a real estate brokerage.
So I don't, we talked about that a little bit on the show before. As soon as they said that they were going to make the acquisition of Showing Time, I told Dan, I was like, look, just put it in this context. If Keller Williams had a showing service and I had to put all of my clients' information into that showing service so that they could contact my clients and monitor how many showings, I'm not a Keller Williams agent. Would I want to do that?
Right.
No, I wouldn't. So
I don't use time anyway. It's not user friendly.
Yes, it's geosites, right? It's like a 1990, early 1990 website.
Yeah.
But, I think there's a lot of agents that feel that same way and are probably making moves. I got on a call with Insta Showing, and I've got some of theirs,
and I used one of those yesterday, by the way. It was very, very Calendly-esque.
Yeah.
Very, very smooth, similar kind of user interface, UI, and all that stuff. Sorry, producer Matt. That's tech speak for user interface, UI.
Adam Johnson said, "Sounds like you figured out why they bought the companies." Yeah. So it's got to be for the data pool. It can't be. Both of these companies, Compass and Zillow, said they're acquiring these other I don't mean like actual physical properties, but they're acquiring these other intellectual properties, not for the company itself or to take over or to try to get your client's information. They want the data. And if they can use that data, how are they going to use that in the marketplace? So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't, to answer your question directly, Mia, there's really nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do that's going to stop it. You could decide to use someone different, or if they really improve showing time, you could decide to use them too. I think there's a place in our marketplace for someone to click a button and sell a house to someone that could buy it, right? If Zillow takes that place, they're not a competitor with me, the real estate agent. They're competitor with every one of those little signs out that you say, we buy houses, any condition. That's the competitor. It's the investor that's going to take on whatever property, because they can't beat me on sell price. They can't beat me on the real estate fees. They can't beat me on any of that. When you dive into what they're charging way more than I would have, and I'm getting more for my client. So they're charging a convenience fee.
20% by the time you figure it out. And I just had a seller. He was offered $245 and his house is worth about $400.
Ooh.
Wow. That's a
That's
little
more than
off.
20%.
That's more than 20%.
That's a Susie Orman prediction right there.
But there's a place for them all the same. There's a place for them in the marketplace. And I think that's fine. And to have more of them into the marketplace is not necessarily a bad thing for real estate agents. I think there's a lot of us agents out there that have to improve in communicating the value that we actually offer the consumer. Because when we can't communicate the value of hiring a real estate agent, then there's no reason to hire a real estate agent. So if you don't tell them, this is what I'm going to do, here's the plan and process, here's how we're going to evaluate offers, let's jump 5 years in the future in extreme buyer's market. Here's what we're going to do in this extreme buyer's market to give you additional exposure to the marketplace and be sure that most of the buyers that are looking for your home see it. Like there's different markets, different things that happen in different ways that as real estate agents, we communicate that value. But if you're not doing that, if you're only focused on a smooth transaction, you're way behind. I've said this a dozen times. If you're only focused on improving the ease of experience for the consumer, you're behind. You have to create an incredible experience for the consumer, and one that they know they receive more value, not only from you, but from the sale of the property or from being able to locate a property that they wouldn't otherwise have access to, but were it not for you. And if we can communicate that, then we don't have to worry about somebody that clicks a button and sells a property. That's fine. That's a convenience that I'm not going to offer. Or can you? We've talked about this in the past too. You could partner with different investors in the community who would be willing to purchase properties at 10% below market value, just like some of these other iBuyer programs. So you can offer those same services they are. You're just not marketing them.
Yeah, you put a little link on the every single listing you have out there, and it just says email Ray, email Dan for an instant offer.
That's right, an instant offer. We talked about instant offers last year from the Bearded Men of Real Estate. Instant
more bids.
Be more bids.
Yeah.
Basically, you just send us an email and tell us your address, and then we'll tell you a price for your property. It's that simple.
It's one click. That's it.
Be more bids. People in the chat. So remember, there you go.
Yeah.
So thanks, Mia, for joining the show. I appreciate your comments and feedbacks. I think you're right on. The big question: if you're already using Glide, are you going to continue to use Glide just because Compass has them? Are you worried that a competitor in your marketplace has it? If you're with Compass, what do you think this is going to add to your portfolio? Is this a big service for you as an agent? We'd love to see those comments, or you can reach out to us. Dan, could you tell people where they could reach out to you actually?
DLudwigRocks, DLUDWIGROCKS. And I also want to say, hey, if you're struggling right now, you can always reach out to someone and get some help. And if you aren't struggling right now, reach out to someone and see if they need help. There you go. And I am Ray. On all the social medias, you'll find me as Ray Zorback. That's RAYZORBACK. And about 10:15 tonight, it'll be official. I'll be 39. I was 11 pounds, 13 ounces when I was born, Dan. Oof, you beat me. I was over 10. I was 10.6 or something like that. Jeez. I've kept every bit of it. Yeah. I've shed most of it. I only weigh 104 pounds now. That's right. That's right. Yeah. 6'4", 104 pounds. I'm trying to get back to my original weight of 10 pounds, but it's tough. It's pretty tough. That's right. We're chunky babies. Chunky babies. Yeah. I was very round. Yeah. Rotund. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining the show. If you're watching the rewind and you've made it this far, be sure to put your birth weight in the comments. That way we know. All right. Hey, guys. And can I end it real quick, Ray? I want to say I love you, man. I appreciate everything you do. You put out so much amazing stuff in the world. Not just personally just great vibes, but real estate wise, and you're really loved out there, and people appreciate what you do. So thank you, man. And I'm lucky and blessed to be a part of this show and to be on here every week with you. My life is only enriched because of you in the last 4 years. And I love you a lot. And thanks, man. I appreciate it. And happy birthday.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry.